let's jump right into the conclusion of Floating Market. This was, I believe, a Kickstarter game. I believe I kickstarted it and had it sent to me. This is a dice game. We're going to be rolling the dice and worrying about probabilities of the dice. There's tons of dice in this game. There's just dice galore. You have very little control of what's going to happen to the dice. The more players you have, the less control you're going to have. You're going to be putting one dice into the pool. If you put a 4 and somebody puts a 12, what's going to be rolled? What's going to be... And the more dice are going to be added, and more dice, and there's ways to add dice, subtract from the total and add to the total, and you only have so much you can do. So you're not going to have a lot of control in this game, and that's okay, and that's going to be a decision on whether you like those type of games or not. The gameplay's quick. It's not a long game, so it can be okay for some. It didn't have enough control for me. I felt like I was having the game play me. I actually won the game we played at BGG-Con when the first time I played it, and I still was let down. I played it a couple times since then, and it just lets me down every time, unfortunately. It just doesn't have enough there for me. Now, this could be a fun game for other people or non-gamers or somebody who likes a lighter game, maybe a filler game. It can have its place. It just didn't have enough control. I absolutely love the colors in this game. I mean, this is a colorful game. I like the board, the icons, everything you need to know is on the board. With some text that might have helped. I think they wanted to have an international flair, maybe where it was language independent, but the icons are very easy to put down. I do like the components are great. The dice are okay. There's some misprints on some of the dice. On the 4-sided die, there's some misprints. You can work around it, but it is a pain. I feel like that should have been righted. The rules are pretty easy to follow. The problem is just the game. It's just not enough here. When I played it with some people, their response was, God, I didn't kickstart that. And perhaps I lost out on that. I try not to get into the hoopla or the hype of the Kickstarters, and I have to like it just because I bought it. There's not enough here for me. There are some interesting decisions, but they can be taken away from you by other people taking what you want. And you can kind of piggyback people when getting those coins. I had a pretty good opportunity to get a lot of coins. And don't underestimate the buildings that are around. Those can really help you out. Otherwise, decent game maybe. It's not terrible. I don't know that it's broken. I think it's just luck-filled. And that's going to turn some people off. Otherwise, brilliant. Love the box, the components. I mean, I think the box is the best thing about it, and the components, which that's not unlike a lot of games, I suppose. But you're going to have a real lack of control. Now, I do like the worker placement aspect of it. I do like how once you use a dice, it's gone until you retrieve them all by taking a place on the board. So that sometimes that can be a hard decision. Do I need the dice that I want? Or do I wait and take another action that might be more beneficial to me? But at some point, you got to use a worker to get these dice back. And knowing when to use it can be helpful. Otherwise, try before you buy. This is not something you need to run out and purchase. This is not a great game. This is not something that's going to fulfill your collection in any way. But it is a pretty one. The components for Floating Market are actually pretty good. This board, very beautiful, very user-friendly. The only complaint I have about the board is some of these spaces are a little bit hard to see, and there may be a misprint here. This says it costs a coin on the board. The rules will state otherwise, or at least it's quiet to the subject, and we weren't really sure to go by the rules or the board. We chose to play by the board, but your mileage may vary. There may be an answer on the Geek somewhere, but we didn't see one. I do love this box. I like how everything fits in. This is a container over it, so everything kind of stays in place, if you will, except for when I do that. So this comes off. You're going to have dice of different color. You're going to have a little pretty sweet meeple guy that's used in a 2 and 3 player game. You got some thick tiles that are pretty good. These are going to be the boats. They're going to come in different colors. These are extremely thick tiles. You can see that there. And very colorful. Everything's very, very colorful. Plenty of dice. Dice galore. Dice is a different color. Big problem, there's a misprint on the 4-sided die. You can still use it. It can still kind of make sense. But it is a misprint. And I forget which one it is, but it's one of these.
Let's see if I can find it really quickly for you, but I can't. But anyway, one of those are misprinted. The cards, they don't shuffle, but they're here. The coins, the money as cards, that's good. No paper money. These are not shuffled, so these will just be set across the board, which you'll see in the flow of the game. So, but these are really nice quality. The components are fantastic. Let's see, you got these meeple guys. These are great. They come in different colors. As you can see, this pink and this peach are a little close. Other than that, they're very good, very unique, and very thick. Components, other than the mistake possibly on the board, and the misprint on the dice. Other than that, the quality of it's good, but a couple of errors that is going to really irk some people. So if you look here, I may have found it. Let's see if we can find it. That's a 3, but that's a 4 on the bottom and a 4 again. Can you see that? No. But that is the misprint. So there's a 3, there's a 4, and a 4. They should all be 4s there when you roll it. It should all be on the bottom, and it's not. So if you can deal with that or find a replacement 4-sided die, you're in business.
All right, let's take a look at this rule book. It's a beautiful looking rule book. It's printed on decent paper. It's very, very colorful. We're gonna have a section with the board set up, with the components around the board, all labeled nicely. The game is really easy. There's not a whole lot to do. You're gonna have maybe a page worth of rules. Take the pictures out, maybe a page. It's fairly easy, and how you win is easy. The majority of what you're gonna need to know is this section on what all the buildings do. This is great. I believe there's a misprint on the board. We didn't really know how to play it, so we just kind of played that you had to pay a coin, even though the book didn't tell you had to pay a coin, but it was on the board. So we just kind of rolled with that. I don't know. Should you listen to the board or the book? That's a big question sometimes when there's a misprint. We didn't care enough to look it up. There wasn't anything out because the game was new. I don't care enough to look it up now. It's not a game I'll be keeping. So, but the rulebook is fine. The rulebook is good. This game is really simple, and this is a good rulebook for learning this game.
So this is going to be the setup for Floating Market. You're going to have the cards across the top. First person to get 5 different fruits. You can never have more than 1 fruit. Will win the game. You can never have more than 6 of these coins at a time. And basically the way the game is going to go is going to be very simple. You're going to get a number of these little workers. And then you will get a number of dice. There's a few more dice in this, but you get some dice. The only kind of strange thing here is that the peach and the pink, although it may not look similar here, it can get a little confusing. So basically what you're going to have around the board is you're going to have some boats right here that you're going to be able to place workers on. Let me zoom in on one of those, and you will start to see numbers. These are numbers that you're hoping the dice will land on if you happen to have somebody in there. So I'll go through a round of the game, kind of show you. This is going to be the main way we're going to get fruit, and then you have around the board little spaces, worker placement spaces that will kind of break the rules, if you will. So what's going to happen in this game is going to be you're going to place a worker somewhere. Usually these boats are going to be taken fairly quickly, and people will start to do this. On your first round, when you place a worker, you will add 1 of your remaining dice into the dice pool to be rolled. And usually you'll pick this based on which one of these boats you're getting. So the lower number, you want to use a smaller dice. Larger number, you want to use a larger dice. So I'll just throw a random one in here into the pool to be rolled. We have one for blue also. I'll just add a random dice. Maybe not the best strategic decision. Yellow will be placed out. They will also add a dice. On your first turn, you must add a dice. Add another green. They will add, I'm just picking random, nothing is strategic here. And you'll be done adding dice. So this is a 4-player game, just to illustrate it. And we will not be adding any more dice, so then you will add more workers. And a lot of times you'll just add workers to these boats, because these boats, as I'm going to illustrate, will be how you get fruit. So we'll continue to put these guys out, and I'm just kind of randomly doing this to showcase the game. And we'll put a guy out there, and I think I got them all out. If not, forgive me, but I'm going to show how the game works. So they're all out. What you would do then is you would take the dice that everybody put in, plus any modifiers, which I'll get to in a second. We're going to exclude those for a second, just to illustrate this point. You add up the total of the dice. If you can see, I got a 6. 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11, plus 8 would be 19. So what you would do is you would look to see which boat scores 19. And in this case, it would be this one right here, which is a 17 through 19 range. That means the green, the person on this boat, would then get this type, the little icon, fruit. Remember, 5 different ones, and you won the game. So this color would get a fruit. Anybody adjacent, and there's little arrows here, you might not be able to see it on the game. Right here's an arrow, so it kind of just goes around in a big circle. This person would get a coin. So blue would get a coin, and the person on this side would get a coin. So then green would get a coin. So right now, after the roll of the dice, we have the pink or peach with a green fruit, and each of the ones adjacent with a coin. That's the game. Now, what's going to change things up just a tad are going to be the buildings that are around the board. I'll go through those really quickly. At the first one, you can either add 4 or plus or minus 2 to the dice roll. Now, this would be added, and all these buildings will usually be activated before we roll the dice, but I wanted to show you the main mechanic of the game. So you could have added 4 or minus 2. So if you're trying to find something larger, you would pick the minus 4. If you're trying to make it smaller, you'd add the minus 2. And that's just a way for you to mitigate the dice. Up here, you can either add a die 12 or prevent the die 12, the purple one, which is the NPC or non-player one. You could not add it. If nobody selects it, it's not added, but that can be fairly interesting. You have the artist hut here, which will add a die 6 if you so choose, or you could add another player dice of your choosing that you would have left. Because once you have a dice, you don't get it back automatically, which I'll get to in a second. And then we have here, which is important. This is where the money's going to come in. If you have 4 coins, this is what these icons here mean, if you can see them. If you have 4 coins, you put a person on the spot, you pay your 4 coins, and you take any fruit that you want. So that's a way to use the coins. That's what the coins are going to be good for, is this spot. Keep in mind, you can never have more than 6, and this spot here is only for 3+ players. So if you're playing a 2-player game, this spot would not be available. This right here is where you go to retrieve your dice. So when you spend a dice to be rolled, it's out of play until you go here and pick up all your dice. So if I had played these 3 dice, I can't choose them on a turn. I would have to choose one of my remaining dice. Or if I had gone here, then I would have all my dice back at my disposal. So fairly interesting. Then we'll move up here to the top. This is the collect fruit stand. And basically what this means is if you were adjacent, instead of getting a coin, you would actually get a fruit. So if green had correctly guessed or used a probability of the dice to have a good hypothesis of where this is going to be, then he can kind of hedge his bets, if you will. So if he thought, well, maybe, doing something like this may have been smart because that if it's here or here, this is a pretty good range. So now your range is from 17 to 23 because this tile will allow you to get a fruit stand. The north and south trackers, these two work the same way, but the opposite. They now say if the 17 and 19 is rolled 2 steps away, either north or south, depending on which one you go to, will pay a coin. So you can get a coin if you're 2 steps away. So theoretically, if red and yellow had picked those selections, they could have got coins there, even though normally it's only 1 spot away. It opens up to be 2. The next one is the Tailor. That allows you to add any 2 dice from your hand to the pool. So if you're trying to get one of these high numbers, 36 through 40, 29 through 35, and the people have been adding the right dice for, you can add 2 additional dice from your pool. Remember, you don't get them back unless you retrieve them. So it can end up costing a little bit in the long run. And for the office, you spend 1 coin, another use of a coin, and you can place a customer there, and then immediately assign your rest. So if you have 3 people, you can go there and pay a coin and technically give up a worker, but you could place these other 2 really quickly on the board, which might be important to do to grab some of these boats, especially if they're fruit that you're trying to get maybe on a last round. The fishmonger is neat because you can place somewhere somebody already is. So if you really need this number and you really need that kind of fruit to win the game, somebody's already there, you put a worker there, and now you can put that spot in effect, really honestly using 2 workers to place there. But that space has to be available. And that's kind of how it works. Now, these spaces right here on the side, I like to call them the roulette spaces because for all intents and purposes, you get 1 coin if you place a worker here and it's on this side, one of these 3 boats. And if you had placed a worker here, you would get 3, or you would get a coin if it's in one of these 4 boats. So kind of hedging your bets as opposed to just being adjacent. But there's no chance of getting fruit if you're in these spots. So kind of a rub, if you will. Keeping in mind, the game ends when the first player gets 5 different fruit. And that's what you're going to be shooting for. Lots of rolling dice. Lots of hedging your bets and rolling dice. And very little control over what dice are going to be rolled. As you're only going to have 3 workers. But there's quite a few places to mitigate the dice, but you have no control. If everybody puts in their big dice and you're trying to get a small number, then you may be screwed. But it helps a little bit that the highest number is also the lowest number. So I don't know if that's helpful. The people smarter than me at math may be able to figure it out. But this is floating market. You're going to place 3 workers. The first time you place, you're going to add a dice to the roll. When everybody's done, the powers will activate. You will roll the dice. Somebody will get at least a fruit, and the 2 adjacents will get at least a coin, plus any of the other buildings. Welcome to Floating Market.
Who should buy this game? Well, I'm going to purge this game. I don't think that's a secret from the conclusion. Who would like this game? People who like games. People who like to roll a lot of dice and figure out the probability of that, and don't mind a little luck or less of control than you would have otherwise. Somebody who might like to play with younger kids or non-gamers. I think younger kids would like this game a lot. 12, 13, 11, where they don't notice how out of control they are. But that lack of control can kind of keep them in the game a little bit. So this might not be a good dice probability game for a younger crowd. It's a beautiful looking game. I think it's going to attract people when they see it. The buildings all make sense, so there's nothing out there. For non-gamers, having this many options may be an issue, but it makes sense after a round or 2. So, and they won't fall too far behind because at the end of the day, it's these ships and the roll of dice that really matter. So playing the probability of that. And this could be an exercise or maybe even a classroom game where you're figuring out the probability of something and what's the chances of these dice and who has what dice left. So this could be a semi-educational game, I suppose, in the classroom. And I would definitely recommend trying this before you buy, especially if you're worried about a game being too light, because this game is paper thin and very, very light, other than the probability aspect, which I didn't want to sit there and crunch the numbers on all that, but to some that may be entertaining. Otherwise, Floating Market, Purge for me, highly recommend you try it before you buy it.